You know I'm a process person,
Right, I know.
so
It's not on yet.
I am.
Push the red button and go. Yeah, well, he just showed me.
We good? All right. For those of you who are joining us virtually, thank you for being here. Right now, the group is all introducing themselves to someone they don't already know. So next time, we hope that you will be joining us in person so you can meet some people across departments who you don't already know. So we're going to just settle the group down and we will get started. Okay, if everyone can take a seat, we're going to get started. All right, I'm going to have Chief Davey kick us off today, and then we'll pass it off to our friends in public safety to lead today's discussion.
Hey, everybody. More than that. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Davey. For those few of you that I haven't met, Chief of Staff for the City of Cleveland in Mayor Bibb's office. Today's session is really the kickoff of our Lunch and Learn series, where we're asking folks to more meaningfully engage in mayoral priorities. This is really a continuation and builds on a lot of the work that we've done to break down silos and to engage departments on the work that's getting done in the front line. So a couple of things that we've already done in this space are the creation of the Mayor's Innovation Award, the budget town halls that we've done, thousands of employees engaging on the strategic plan. So really just a continuation of the ways in which we want to make sure that staff are more aligned, that we're communicating more openly about the big issues that we're all working on, and then providing opportunities to get real feedback from our teammates. So, today's session is on public safety as we look to roll out our summer safety plan, as a number of questions have come into the office about key priorities and initiatives coming out of the department. We want to take this opportunity just to engage. And again, this will be the first of many. So while we're kicking off with public safety, look for other invitations on items like the lakefront or the southeast side or the other major priorities coming out of the mayor's office. So thanks for being here. Thanks for spending some time with us. And I'm going to turn it over to Director Drummond to get us started.
Thank you, Chief Davey. Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How's everyone today? Good. I appreciate you all coming out, and those who are probably online and listening and so forth. This is a great opportunity for us in public safety in particular, and also Philip McHugh, to kind of talk about our strategy here in the mayor's priority relative to public safety. We also have our division heads here from all the divisions, police, fire, EMS, and then animal care control as well, in case we have specific division-specific questions that they can answer, that I can't answer. As you know, I'm new to the role, relatively new to the role, just started my role in February, so to the Department of Public Safety. However, I've been with the Division of Police in the City of Cleveland for 35 years. I was 35 years as a police officer, my last as the Chief of Police, and then transitioned over here to the Interim Director of Public Safety. And again, just trying to get the mayor's priority out relative to public safety. And part of that was bringing in some really good talent to the Department of Public Safety. We have talent relative to the fire department with Chief Luke, Chief Todd in the Division of Police. You have Wheeler back there in EMS, and then Bruce Campbell for Animal Care and Control. And the mayor felt, and his staff, that we needed someone in public safety to assist someone that understands data. And that's not to say that individuals in the city of Cleveland currently don't understand data. That's not it. He wanted someone with the experience understanding data, very analytical in their thoughts, and also understand processes and how to improve processes and so forth. So there was a job description went out. That job description was filled with Phil, but before that, approximately 16 people put in for that particular role. And Phil was by far the most qualified and subsequently selected for his role, his current role, which is the senior advisor to the public safety director. And I can tell you unequivocally, since he's been here, he's lived up to all the expectations, and his qualifications are tremendous relative to what he brings to not only the city of Cleveland, but also the Department of Public Safety, and assisting me as I transitioned into this new role to oversee all of the divisions under Department of Public Safety. Now, there's a lot that's going on, and quite frankly, it's been distracting from the work that we're trying to do in the Department of Public Safety in all divisions. It's very distracting. And I'll have to say that not only distracting, but very unfair to Phil McHugh. I know life is not fair. People say that all the time, but what's going on, I believe, is wrong, what's going on with Phil. So we felt it really important that we give you the opportunity to ask questions. But before that happens, we're going to give Phil the opportunity to walk you through what happened back in 2015, almost 10 years ago, subsequent lawsuit, the settlement of that lawsuit. And by the way, it's important to understand, just because one settles a lawsuit doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty of anything. I want to make sure that's understandable, that we understand that, because sometimes those are just business decisions. Those are business decisions. But again, it's important that we have these type of conversations so we can clear the air and get facts out there. Before this happened, Phil and I actually was en route to, or coming back from, an engagement. We were out and about, and we were just having a conversation, and I believe we were talking about lawsuits, and Phil said, well, you know, I was involved in a lawsuit back in 2015, or incident in 2015, there was a lawsuit. So we talked through it and so forth. We talked about it, he explained everything to me and so forth, and lo and behold, maybe 2 weeks later, this all came out. So I had knowledge of it as well, but you have to understand there are processes, and that's really important. There are processes in everything, and being a police officer for 35 years, I understand process. It's very easy to get emotions involved and have emotions, you lead by your emotions and so forth, and sometimes that can be pretty dangerous. So it's important to kind of step back, remove the emotions if you can, remove the emotions, understanding process, that's really important, understanding process. As a police officer, and it shouldn't just be as a police officer, but I have to go from my experience of 35 years. There are processes for everything. Really is. There's processes when you're talking about a criminal allegation, which is what this was, which gets assigned in DC. And again, you have different processes, and that's important, and Phil will explain as well. There are different processes. This happened in Washington, DC. It didn't happen in Cleveland, Ohio, and there are different processes and so forth. So understanding that, knowing that there are processes, know that there are investigations, there are tons of people involved in this, supervisors. At that time, Phil was a detective, You have sergeants, you have lieutenants, you have captains, and so forth and so on. And then you have prosecutors, and Phil will explain that process about federal prosecutors versus what we have here. Again, I mentioned processes, so forth. They have federal prosecutors in DC, District of Columbia, and you have city prosecutors here, you have county prosecutors as well, and you also have the federal prosecutors here in this system. And I bring that out because it's really important to understand that. It goes to processes. Detectives have a process, they have to go through rules and regulations and policies, which Phil followed by the letter. So that's all important and so forth. But again, this is very distracting to what we're trying to do, and again, implement the strategies and so forth, what Phil has brought here to do. We have a summer safety initiative that we're trying to put into place, and we will put into place, which was created by Phil in conjunction and cooperation with the Division of Police and Chief Todd and others and so forth. And also part of the strategy relative to the mayor is having an all-of-government approach. Public safety can't just be the Division of Police or the divisions of police, Division of Fire, EMS, Animal Care Control. It has to be all of government approach, and that's what we're doing, incorporating the plans that we're putting together, which includes the all of government approach. But I've talked too much. I'm going to let Phil introduce himself. Phil's going to walk you through what happened, again, explaining things and qualifying things along the way. And when we're done with that, then we're going to open the floor for questions. We have some questions here we're going to answer. And again, if it's specific to the divisions, the respective chiefs and commissioners will answer those questions. Appreciate it, and thanks. Well, he has his mic.
Good. Thank you, Director, and thank you, Chief Davey, for the introduction. I want to start off by kind of laying a foundation, telling you about who I am, what my role is here, and explaining why I came to Cleveland, because I think that's important to know who I am and what I'm about and what I want to do for the city. So I spent the last 16 and a half years as a member of the DC Police Department. I rose to the rank of lieutenant, and in my last role, I was the chief of staff for the chief of patrol operations. So what that means is that I was in charge of developing strategy and deployment plans and putting people in neighborhoods and plans and processes in neighborhoods that needed them the most. And I worked with the council, I worked with the mayor, and we really created a whole of government approach in practice, not just in catchphrase only. And so that's what I really want to do here, and I'll talk more about that vision for what that means here. But I want you to know I did everything on the police department pretty much that there was to do. I was a homicide detective for several years. I investigated over 100 murders in Washington, D.C. I was a sergeant. I ran proactive units focusing on drugs, violent crime, gun interdiction, fugitive apprehension. I was a lieutenant and I was an area commander, so I was in charge of downtown DC, working with the community, working with the Chinatown Improvement District and other stakeholders to make sure that we had thriving neighborhoods that I was responsible for. And so, you know, my career was really on a trajectory. I was due for a promotion to captain. So why did I leave? Why am I here? Why did I pick up and move to Cleveland where I knew no one? Why did I turn down that promotion, leave friends of 20 years, and leave my parents, who had just moved down to Virginia from Philadelphia to be closer to their only son? Why did I pick up and leave all of that to come to Cleveland? And one of the things that's out there, that it's in the media, and it's not something that I have been secretive about, is that I went to college with the mayor. And we got put in a dorm room together when we were teenagers 20 years ago. And when I met the mayor, I was immediately inspired by him. We became good friends, and it was somebody that I knew was going to change the world. And so over the last 20 years, as we've kept in touch and followed each other's careers, I felt, when he became mayor, I felt even 400 miles away the rejuvenation that was taking place in this city. And I wanted to be a part of it. I saw the all-star team that he was putting together of public and private experts from all over government and business and law, and just the best minds coming together to help the city of Cleveland. And I wanted to be a part of it. So I applied for a job middle of last year, and I didn't get it. I applied for a job in the mayor's office on his personal staff, and I wasn't the most qualified for the job. It was somebody in charge of special projects and not really public safety focused. And the mayor, doing what the mayor does, picks the best person for the job. So I kept my eye out. I kept an eye on what was going on in Cleveland, and I applied for another job. I applied for this public safety advisor job, and I was very thankful to get it, and I started on March 4th. So I came up here with my partner and our dog. We bought a house in the city. I'm invested in the city. You know, I'm not living out in the suburbs. I feel like if I'm going to be talking about public safety in the city of Cleveland, I need to be walking my dog. My partner needs to be walking our dog down the sidewalks that everybody else is walking down. That was really important to me. So I came here to do a job. I came here to, you know, not make this DC, not pretend that I know everything, but to get to know Cleveland and to bring some best practices, to bring some efficiencies, to bring some new ideas, fresh perspective on things. And we were doing really good work. First month here was great, getting to know a lot of people, doing a lot of good things, moving the needle forward as we're getting ready for summer. And, you know, as the director mentioned, this news of a lawsuit that I was involved in broke in the media. And it got a lot of attention, as it should, because it's an important issue. And I think that public servants need to be held accountable, need to answer questions internally, externally. And, you know, I want to be clear, it's not something that I hid. It's out there. You Google my name, it pops up on the internet. It's not something that was, you know, unknown. But maybe it was something that we could have done a better job fronting and talking about and acknowledging that this is something that existed, so it wouldn't come up and seem as so much of a surprise. But I want to talk about that particular case. So it occurred when I was a detective about 10 years ago. And in detective work, you randomly get assigned cases. So I came into work one morning and I had this case on my desk to investigate an allegation that 2 senior citizens had gotten into a car accident, and then one alleged that the other pulled a gun on her in the middle of that dispute. So I conducted a series of interviews. I recovered video that didn't prove or disprove that it happened. And really what it boiled down to was a he said, she said. And so once I had all of my investigation completed, I took my case file down to the prosecutors in D.C., the assistant United States attorneys who make these decisions about what happens with these cases. And we went through it, and I said, this is all I have. It's a weak case. I don't think it's worth moving forward with. And for reasons that I can't tell you today, the prosecutors made the decision that the case was going to move forward. So I was instructed to go get a search warrant for their home in Maryland. We went, we searched their home, we searched their cars. We didn't find a gun anywhere to substantiate this allegation that one woman had pulled a gun on another. So I went back to the prosecutors after doing what they asked me to do, and I shared with them that we had no more evidence to support that this actually occurred. Prosecutors have the ultimate deciding authority on this, and they decided that they wanted to charge this woman, the 75-year-old senior citizen, who I didn't find a gun on, who I didn't find a gun in the house, who I didn't find a gun in their car, with assault with a deadly weapon. And I worked with this woman's attorney to arrange for her surrender so she wouldn't have to spend any time in jail. The case proceeded to the grand jury, and it wasn't until we got to the grand jury phase of this investigation where the woman who made the original allegation told me that she was bipolar and that she takes medicine that affects her memory, and that she couldn't even say if it was a gun in her hand. So we went from, at the beginning of the investigation, having this very strong allegation to now the case has fallen apart. The case was dismissed. So in some regards, the justice system worked in that the average citizens who sit on the grand jury voted not to indict this woman. But everything else that led up to that is something that for the last 10 years I have felt terrible about. And I often think about what could I have done differently to stop this from happening. You know, it doesn't give me any comfort to know that I followed policy to the letter, that I followed the Constitution to the letter, that I wasn't, found to have done anything wrong. That doesn't make me feel any better, if I'm being completely honest with you. But this is how this case played out. Then Mrs. Sherrod, who was the person who was arrested in this case, she sued me, she sued the city, she sued the woman who made this allegation against her. And for the next 4 or 5 years, we went through this lawsuit. And during the course of the lawsuit, I was represented by the city attorneys, and I was never able to speak to Mrs. Sherrod. I was never able to say to her, to her husband, to her children, to anybody, I'm sorry this happened to you. And that is something that I have had to live with for the last 10 years, because up until 2 months ago, I was still a DC government employee. So you guys know here that we have rules about who can talk to the media and when and about what, and I was forbidden from talking publicly about this case. So it wasn't until I got here, wasn't until this became public and we're now having an opportunity to talk about it, that I could speak freely about it, that I can tell you that I think what happened is terrible, that I feel bad about it, and answer any questions anytime, anywhere about it. It's something that I think is important to talk about. For context, this happened a few months after Michael Brown was killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri. And so race was a very sensitive, hot topic in the nation then, and it clearly played a role, I believe, in what happened between these 2 women on this city street. And that is something that it's in my past. It's not indicative of who I am. Again, there was no finding that I violated anybody's civil rights. Our internal affairs unit investigated the case and found that I didn't do anything wrong. And so it is something that I had to move on from, and it's something that had to inform my decision-making going forward as a supervisor in police work, to share this story with my officers, to share this story with new detectives that I trained, to explain to them the power and the authority that comes with being a police officer and the importance of making good decisions and standing up for what you believe is right. So that's the lawsuit in a nutshell. That's my background in a nutshell. And now I really want to talk about my role here, my vision for public safety, and how we're going to move the Department of Public Safety forward, particularly as we hit the summer months coming up. And at the end, or anytime, any place, I will answer any specific questions you have about that lawsuit and my background. But I really want to use this time to talk about the stuff we're doing to move the city forward and why I'm here. So if you'll allow me, I want to start off by saying that when I got here, I was super impressed by all the good work being done in this city. I didn't know what I expected. Outside of Cleveland, as you can imagine, folks kind of badmouth Cleveland, and people ask me, why do you want to move to Cleveland? Why do you want to move to Cleveland? But I get here and I meet some of the best people that I've ever met. I'm moving into a neighborhood where I have people coming over and welcoming me to the neighborhood with baked goods and a bottle of wine and a six-pack of beer. And it's something I would not have experienced in D.C. So I think that's really special, and that's something that really shows the investment of Cleveland community. And so I'm not coming here to make Cleveland D.C. I'm not coming here to say that I know everything about public safety. I'm kind of a nerd. I like doing research. I like seeing best practices. I like seeing what other cities are doing that are working. And so I have a lot of suggestions that I'm going to be making. I have a lot of technology things that I think would be good to implement here, and not just for policing. I want you to understand that even though my background is policing, I can look at processes and see room for improvements and efficiency. So working with Chief Luke at the fire department to implement a technology solution to some of their record-keeping issues. Working with Commissioner Wheeler at EMS to better tell the story to the community about how Cleveland EMS has an average response rate 1 minute below the national average for priority 1 calls. I mean, these are things that we need to do as a government a better job of telling the story about. And so that's what I want to do. That's what I want to bring here. But I also want to say that everybody in this room, everybody that's watching, everybody in Cleveland government plays a role in public safety. It's not just the folks in Director Drummond's department. It's the folks that clean up graffiti. It's the folks that make sure the street lights are working. It's the folks that cut down overgrown trees and shrubs that are blocking cameras and lights and creating places and environments where disorder and crime can thrive. It's all of those folks that are important. And so when I went to the first cabinet meeting here and I stood up and I said, everybody in this room has a role to play in public safety, I absolutely meant it. And that collaboration across departments, that accountability for, hey, you said you were going to fix those lights, how come they're not fixed yet? That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to shake the cobwebs out of City Hall, to make sure that everybody understands that they are accountable to the people in the space of public safety. And so I look forward to working with everybody in this room, everybody that's watching. I look forward to telling your stories. I look forward to launching the Summer Safety Initiative, which Director Drummond will probably kick off here in a minute. But I'm really just happy to be here. And I know that over the last week and a half, there's been this stuff in the media about Phil, the guy who used to be the college roommate of the mayor, was sued 10 years ago. It's true. I was his roommate. I was sued. I have a past. This is who I am. And I will not shy away from those conversations. But I'm here to do a job. And I would really love just an opportunity to move past this. I don't like talking about myself. I know I have to. I know we have to address issues that are of concern. And these are legitimate concerns that folks have. If I saw somebody coming in that had been sued and accused of X, Y, and Z, I would want the facts. I would want the answers before I trusted them or felt comfortable with them. So that's what we're doing here today. That's what I'll do anytime, any place with any member of the community, any member of the government, anybody that wants to meet me and talk to me. Name the time and place, and I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee. So that's my spiel. I want to turn it back to Director Drummond so that we can get back to business, answer some of your questions, and talk about how we're going to make Cleveland the safest city in America. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. So, yeah, we're going to talk about, Phil kind of mentioned some of the strategies that we're talking about. We have the summer safety plan that's coming up, and Phil has been working on it. It is actually ready to go. We're going to implement it May 1st. Chief Todd and the Division of Police also has a summer safety plan, which kind of marries right into the plan that Phil created. And I did say Phil. Phil is the one that authored the plan using his skill set, which is taking data, and we're data-driven. That's important, and we're not doing things arbitrarily. We take data, and that directs us where we're going to go and where we're going to put our resources. And that resource that we're talking about is just not the Division of Police, not just fire, EMS, animal care controllers. Again, and Phil mentioned it, it's the all-of-government approach, which means, for example, we identified 5 areas within the city of Cleveland. There are more, but we identified 5 areas, and we're going to target that what we call probably a microgrid area. It's a smaller area within those 5 areas. We know there are a lot of areas in the city of Cleveland that needs help, no question about it. And there are some areas in Cleveland, a lot of areas that don't. But we identify, based on data, 5 areas within the city of Cleveland that traditionally and historically have caused us consternation, violence and otherwise. So we identify those particular areas, and we put resources in all those areas from police. And police is not the only resource. It's one of them. It's one of them. From enforcement, from our partners with the FBI, the DEA, Highway Patrol, I can go on and go on. It's going to actually concentrate in those areas, coupled with other things, economic development, building and housing, Department of Health, all those particular violence interrupters, all those individuals would also go into these areas, because we can't just go in there and have enforcement, and nothing else. So we want to make sure, again, that we have all of government approach in these areas, and we're going to target these particular areas. Take those who need to be taken out because they're doing bad things. They're either shooting weapons, so we're going to target those individuals and remove them from the community. But we're also going to do other things, again, economic development, job opportunities, and so forth. If it's a streetlight issue, we're going to deal with it. If it's a grass issue, high weeds and so forth, we're going to deal with it, so we can give those particular areas an opportunity to thrive based on all the resources that we're going to be putting in those areas. And again, those are some of the summer plan and strategy that we have. And our vision, and my vision, our vision, because it's not mine, it's a collective vision, again, is to make sure we have the all-government approach to hit these particular areas that are really depressed and are having issues relative to crime, not only crime, but also economic development. So that's our goal here in public safety. We want to make sure we hit those. And there are other strategies that we have, which are short-term, long-term, dealing with some crime-related issues that we're working with Chief Todd on, identifying them and then targeting those particular areas. Again, some are long-term, some are short-term, but we have those goals, and we're working collaboratively to deal with those particular areas. So that's our goal. We're going to take this opportunity this time right now to see if you have any. I'm going to turn it over to Abby, and we're going to start answering or asking questions if you have any questions.
Thank you, Director. All right, we're going to start with some of the questions that were submitted in advance. So all of our chiefs and directors in public safety have had the chance to review these, so it's a little bit of cheating going on. All right, we'll start with the is there movement towards incorporating more mental health professionals with the Cleveland Police for crisis intervention and de-escalation? What de-escalation training are police officers taking part in, and has it proven effective? Who would like to take this one? Chief? Director?
Thank you. That's a really good question. Mental health training for our officers is important. We have we have a police psychologist, Dr. Franklin's her name, that talk with our officers. This is all voluntary. We don't force anyone to go there. It works best when it's voluntary. And we also have what's called the Employees Assistance Unit that assist our officers, and not only the officers, but also their families, with whatever issues they may have, if they have issues, or just an opportunity to talk with peers, as also with Dr. Franklin and so forth. And Chief Todd probably can give you a little bit more, I hate to put on the spot, information, again, relative to what we're doing for mental health for our officers.
Thank you, Director. Sure. Appreciate that. So good afternoon, everyone. As they said, I'm Dorothy Todd. I'm the Chief of Police. So just to talk a little bit about the mental health services, there's a couple different areas that we focus on with the mental health as far as our response to those in crisis. We have currently what we call our crisis intervention trained officers, which are officers who respond to those calls for service, are the first ones that go out. They receive a specialized training, and we actually have a class that's graduating today that just completed the program. We also have our co-responders group, which is our officers partnered with a member of the mental health services. Now those officers, what they do, they do assist a little on the calls for service, but they are the longer term follow-up. So they will go out to help the members that they know have issues in the community. They'll go out, just do a follow-up, check on them, see how they're doing, and see if there's some services that they can offer. We're also partnering currently with our dispatchers. We're working through a program to potentially have a crisis intervention call takers. So we're currently working with a member of the administration on bringing that program forward. It's something that we're currently working on. And our officers, they receive annual training on crisis intervention. So it's a priority. We know it's an issue throughout the city, and our use of force related to those in crisis is below 1%. So it's really low. Our officers are trained in this area, and we know that those who are experiencing a mental health crisis are not always aware of what they're doing, and our officers are trained to react to that.
I'm going to keep you up here, Chief Todd. We covered both mental health services for our police and our public safety first responders, as well as for our residents, which is good because that killed two of my questions in one. So, Chief, can you talk about where our police officers live?
So I know this question came up, and it took a little bit of research. We did do a kind of an overall check so I can intelligently answer this question. So I think it was about 2008, around that time, that the residency in the city of Cleveland was lifted. So prior to that, all the members of the Division of Police were required to live in the city. Once that was lifted, our officers, some stayed, some moved over the years. When we did an evaluation, what I found is that of our 1,192 members, the majority, if you took one poll, the majority do live in the city of Cleveland, as far as, percentage-wise. So if you were to pick a particular city that the majority of the officers live in, it's Cleveland. We have members in all 17 wards throughout the city. And if you look as an overall, there's no particular city throughout Northeast Ohio that has more officers, from the Division of Police than the city of Cleveland does.
Thanks. Could one of you please talk about this is the question submitted, lack of traffic enforcement throughout the city?
Thanks, Abby. That's a good question because we get that quite a bit. And I can tell you, again, putting my experience on, my hat as being a police officer, my hat as being a district commander, my hat as being a deputy chief of field operations, which was in charge of all the districts, as well as being the chief and so forth. I can tell we receive complaints, I have over the years, and one of the biggest complaints I received, again, as a commander on up, is traffic related. Believe it or not, you would think that, with some of the crime that we have in the city, and overall Part 1 crimes are down. I want to make sure you understand that. But one of the biggest complaints I received, and maybe Chief Todd can back that up, is traffic complaints. And so it's important that, again, I mentioned before data. We have to base our response, and I truly believe this, based on complaints that come in and so forth, and not be arbitrary in our traffic enforcement. That's really, really important to me. I just don't want, as a chief, and now as the safety director, I will not give an order to, or a mandate to this chief, or any chief, to go out there and just enforce traffic arbitrarily. It has to be data-driven, and it has to be complaint-driven. That's really important to me. When you just go out and enforce traffic arbitrarily, I think it creates a conflict and strains community police relations. Again, it has to be data-driven and complaint-driven. When we receive complaints, or the Division of Police now, I keep saying we because I have to get past that because I'm no longer with the Division of Police. When the Division of Police receives complaints relative to traffic, they go out and take care of those particular complaints. We have what is called a Bureau of Traffic, and those are officers, and their main function and primary duties are traffic enforcement, and they're out every day doing just that, again, based on complaints. So we do have enforcement relative to traffic, and it's been increasing over the last couple of years. So I don't want anyone to think that we don't have traffic enforcement. We do. It's just data driven, and it's based on complaints. Chief, want to add anything to that?
I'm going to add one really quick nuance to that. So I'm just going to give one quick example. Recently, we received a traffic complaint for one particular area. And I sent the officers out. I said, focus enforcement in this area, make sure that we are addressing all of the violators. And we got a really nice follow-up email from businesses in that area. But what it also said was their employees were the ones getting the tickets. So we found that, you know, we want you to enforce traffic, but not for our members. So it's one of those things, you know, it comes with both. With writing the citations, it does put even the normal law-abiding citizen, who a lot of people do run that stop sign, park illegally, go a little bit above the speed limit. You know, that all is impactful for that. And when we do go into the neighborhoods, it does happen.
All right, I have a really juicy one that you guys are going to be excited about. I would like a deeper discussion of how the city can improve the procurement for first responder equipment and contracting process. For those of us who are in this work, there's nothing more important than this. So in all seriousness, great question. Who would like to take this one?
I have notes on it. So I have a whole list of notes.
We're going to turn it over to Chief Todd. He has notes on it. And obviously, we're always trying to improve our efficiencies and our processes. Hence, one of the reasons why Phil came in, because he's a process guy, and part of why he's here to help us through our processes to improve those procurement processes and so forth. It's just not public safety, contrary to what some people may think. It's a combination of all those things, and that's why Phil is here to help us with that. We want to improve that. Phil's going to say a couple words about that, then we're going to turn it over to Chief Todd.
Yeah, so I'm really...
Let's write your mic up. Sorry.
As the director keeps harping on, I'm a process guy. I need to see it. I need to know kind of start to finish how we get where we're going. And so when I come into this new environment and I'm trying to understand all these different layers of government, these different offices and acronyms and names, I keep asking for, where's the workflow? Where's the document that shows me start to finish how this thing works? And I know we're talking about procurement, but police and any public safety hiring, for example. What's the process? What's the start to finish, step 1 through 10 for a hiring process? And it was something that didn't exist until a couple weeks ago, and a shout out to Chief Todd and her team, Commander Maguth, Chief Fay, for putting it together. But now we have a one-page document that both the police department, public safety admin, civil service, HR, anybody can look at and understand. And just something as simple as that, to literally get everybody on the same page, is such a huge step in the right direction. Because if we can put steps down and we can put dates to them, I can tell you pretty confidently we're going to have a police academy starting at the end of August, which is fantastic. And it's because we have looked at these operational and administrative efficiencies and said, well, how long do you really need to do that? And now we have a process, and I'm really excited that we're going to have another big police academy class starting at the end of August.
So something tells me this, opportunity for this was for all of city services, and this question may have stemmed internally from the Division of Police. I know sometimes we do struggle with our purchasing and procurement of items, and this sounds like it's something. So even to run the Division of Police, we need all of city services. And, there's things that we have, there's needs of our officers, whether it's purchasing our ballistic vests or a training, payment, things like that, that we have, like everyone else, we follow through city services. So I think a lot of this seems to stem from that. And for those who have anything to do with purchasing, the Advantage system, just like anything else, our members struggle with the process sometimes, and we do need the assistance. For me, when we struggle with this, I reach out to the director's office to get assistance, because we do have things that our priority items. We have a K-9 we're looking to purchase right now, and all of those things require the approval process just like any other city department. So I think that this question may stem internally from the Division of Police, because I know they do get frustrated, and so to those in purchasing, my apologies. I know everyone is very busy, but we appreciate you, and we need your support.
And a quick shout out to our finance team that's working on an end-to-end digitization of our procurement process. So good things coming soon. Thanks to all of those who have been working on that. All right, with the upcoming elections in November of 2024, will there be any uptick in police presence to address any potential civil unrest?
I can talk on that. So I know that currently the Division of Police, we have a plan that we have in place when we address any type of First Amendment demonstrations. We have a solid plan. This is something we've worked and tweaked throughout several years, and we are very comfortable with that plan, and we want to make sure it ensures the safety of the public, it ensures the safety of our members, and it gives everyone the constitutional right to go out there and express their First Amendment. Yes, we will be planning for any potential issues with the upcoming election. We currently are in constant talks about the demonstrations that occur on college campuses related to the wars and going on overseas. So yes, we monitor that. We work with our partners, and we are constantly updated on what they're seeing and hearing, and we will be prepared if there are some type of demonstrations that occur. I think it was my last.
Yeah, you can sit. Yeah, thanks. All right. This is a comment. We have 2 more questions pre-submitted, and then we can take some questions from this group if there are any. Employees need to have a roadmap for growth within the organization. Either of you want to address that one?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that comes back to some of the basics. And I know I can only speak to the Department of Public Safety, but I think employees need to know how they fit into the organization, and they also need to be recognized for how valuable they are. We often refer to people as resources or personnel, but we often forget that they're people, and they have to be valued both personally and professionally. So one of the things that we're taking a look at in our office is, ensuring that everybody knows what their role is. Having something as simple as a current job description, having something as current as an organizational chart for the office so that you know how things flow and where you fit into the overall organization as a whole, having regular staff meetings, things of that nature that really put the emphasis on that personal leadership instead of management. And I think that is really something that I'm so grateful to work for Director Drummond because he really subscribes to that. And I know all of the chiefs and leaders in public safety do also. But as a whole, I think we really need to take a close look at what that roadmap looks like, maybe reduce it to writing and put it on paper and show you kind of what that progression is if it's not clear to you. But I think everybody in government has a right to understand how they can grow professionally and be presented with opportunities for professional development internally and externally. So if there's courses that exist, somewhere in the government or at a local university, we're so lucky to have all these universities here in the city. Are we taking advantage of that? Are we taking advantage of all of those opportunities that exist to grow our folks professionally and personally? So that's something that I look forward to doing. I know Director Drummond subscribes to that also, and it's really something that I hope can move throughout the whole of government and really invest in the future of our employees, because we have great employees. I mean, I'm raving about public safety because I've gotten to know them, but I've been super impressed with everybody here in Cleveland, how committed they are, and I really look forward to doing whatever I can to help with that process. So, Director?
Actually, yeah, if I can.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phil. You kind of hit the nail on the head. For me, it's about making sure each employee feels valued. When I initially took over as the safety director, I had a meeting with my staff, and what I stressed to them was making sure that each and every one of them feels valued. And of course, you say, well, Director, it's easy to say. How do you make sure your employees feel valued? That's to listen to them. Like Phil said, to have staff meetings, to listen to them, see what they need to be successful in their careers and so forth, in their specific jobs. Make sure to have professional continuing education and so forth, and help them in that endeavor, and to listen. I think that's really important, and just not say you value them, but actually mean that, and part of that is helping them in their process, in their career growth, through, again, listening to them, finding training for them, and also them themselves coming up with recommendations and suggestions, not only to help themselves, but also that particular division or department that you're working for. It's about valuing your employee, and part of that is listening to them, and I think that's part of the roadmap for them to be successful and grow in the organization and in their respective departments.
All right, thanks. For those of you that played a big part in our strategic planning process citywide, one of the 4 pillars of the strategic plan is about culture. And under the leadership of Director Cole, who's here, and Director Rashawn Long, our HR and civil service teams are looking at this kind of across the city more broadly. So there's several initiatives there under the culture section of the strategic plan, which is on the mayor's office of our website. I would encourage you to go look to see kind of what those upcoming both culture building and pathways for employment for our staff look like across the city. So those are going to be coming online soon, and we're working through the implementation of those initiatives. All right, last question that's pre-submitted. Chief Director, you covered this a little bit already, but how are we continuously assessing the mental and physical capacity of our first responders?
Very good question. Obviously, the mental welfare and well-being of our first responders, again, across the enterprise is really, really important to us, and that's why we have a police psychologist. We call him a police psychologist, but actually she's a psychologist for all of public safety, not just police. It's all of the divisions, fire, EMS, and I know there are folks in all those respective divisions, animal care and control, that actually utilize that resource, again, and that's through the Department of Public Safety, but we also have other areas within the City of Cleveland, human resources for individuals who may have issues, and I'll be very careful when I say issues, may have problems that they're going through, again, whether it's personal or within the division, their respective divisions within the City of Cleveland. They have the opportunity, again, through the resources that are available through, again, not only human resources, but also specifically to the Department of Public Safety. We have resources in place to help them. And they don't have to come to us, but we do have that available to them, again, to make sure that they're valued. That's a word I keep using, that they feel valued. Not only do we value them for what they do for us here in Division Police, but overall, just their overall mental well-being, whether here when they're working for us or whether they're at home. So again, we have our psychologists, we have other Ease at Work and other departments that can help our individual officers, EMTs, firefighters, and animal care and control officers as well.
All right. Does the group have anyone in the group have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask either Director Drummond, any of the chiefs or commissioners that we have here with us today? We also have Chief Pryor Jones with us, so if you want to talk about violence prevention, she's giving me no. She's here and happy to answer questions too. Yes. Let me just repeat the question for the folks that are watching online. There's been a lot of news about missing persons. Are there any best practices that Phil will be bringing from DC that can help us address any potential missing persons?
So thank you for the question. I think it's fantastic, and I recognize, I actually recognized this a couple days ago, something that really impressed me, because we did have an issue in DC where we had a lot of missing kids, and we started publicizing it and putting flyers out for every time that a child went missing, and that kind of added fuel to this notion that, you know, people are being snatched off the street, and, you know, there's a place where that does happen, but then there's also identifying kids who are chronic runaways for other reasons. And so I think it's striking that balance of having that intervention for those kids, whether it's school, extracurricular, family intervention, child and family services, whatever those look like. But something that really impressed me, and the chief could probably speak more to this than I can, but I saw some news articles about how the U.S. Marshals here actually assist with locating missing people. And I found that that was really impressive, because that's not something that I experienced where I came from. So I've said a lot of things about how, you know, DC was great. I had a great career there, but Cleveland is really far ahead of DC in some ways. So take this for example. Cleveland police right now have live access to 2,500-ish cameras citywide that they can pull up on their real-time crime center cameras and zoom in when crimes are happening, find tag numbers, and go arrest people quickly. In DC, we only had 350 in the nation's capital. So just look at that disparity. So Cleveland is doing a lot of good things. We, the government, the leaders here, we need to tell those stories. We need to get out there daily, weekly, monthly, and talk about all of the good things that we're doing, because I can stand up here all day and say crime is down, but if you don't feel safe, that doesn't mean anything, right? So while I love the data, while I love looking at the data and helping figure out where to go, it's really striking that balance of telling stories, meeting people where they are, hearing their concerns, and recognizing that one part of the city might have different concerns that are equally important to them, but not the same things experienced in other parts of the city. So when I was a new officer, I worked in a police district where I walked a footbeat, where I had to go from Capitol Hill, where it was all the rich politicians living, and they were so upset when they would have their purses taken off of the front seats of their unlocked cars. And then I had to go from there to one of the most violent housing projects in DC and console a mother whose teenage son was just shot and killed. And so I really appreciate that diversity of experience that I had as a young officer, and that has shaped my life to this point. And so that's the person you have standing in front of you today. That's the person that's going to look at all of these things that are happening and making sure that we are targeting interventions where they're needed, specific to those specific problems. Because there's not one blanket solution. There's not one blanket answer I can give you about, we've got missing kids, what are we doing? We need to figure out on an individual level, and I know the police department does that. I promise you, I'm going to look into it and see what other city departments play a role in that, because I guarantee you it's not just a police issue. That answer your question? Thank you.
If I can add as well, and I know we're running short on time, and just important to understand, and I appreciate Phil and what they're doing in DC, and he's just explained that we're doing a lot of good things here in Cleveland, and in particular with missing kids and so forth. We take that really serious. This is a serious thing for us here in the city of Cleveland, in particular with the police department, the police division rather. You know, must understand that each of the districts have what we call a juvenile detective, and they're primarily responsible for finding missing people, not just kids, but missing people. And then we have also out of downtown Cleveland headquarters, we also have a juvenile liaison as well, is a detective that's really well versed, really good at what he does as far as finding missing people, again, children and adults, because we have a lot of individuals that go missing. But I don't want to paint a picture that we just have just an enormous amount of people missing. Phil had mentioned before about some kids run away, and unfortunately they run away multiple times, which leads to other questions as to what's happening in their respective homes, that they're running away multiple times. So which means we need some type of intervention to find out what's going on so those kids don't go missing and so forth. And also, it's important to note that the vast majority of missing people, and in particular missing kids, return back. That's a vast majority. We may have, again, Fox 8 and others put it out there, but at the end of the year, as we do our evaluations and so forth, we make sure that we, again, have officers assigned to missing people, not just kids, but the vast majority return. Also, for an example, if there's someone that goes missing, in each of our respective districts, not only are detectives assigned, but every day in each district we have what is called a missing person car. That person, that officer is assigned every single day. If there's any missing person in that respective district, coupled with a detective, that's their job that entire day, is to look for missing people. So again, we take that serious and so forth. But again, important to note the vast majority of missing kids and adults return. Thanks.
Thank you for that question. We are out of time. I know that everyone needs to kind of get back to what they were doing. If you have additional questions, you guys will be here for some time. Please feel free to come up, talk with them, ask your questions. One quick shameless plug for Director McNamara. May 15th is Senior Day, and she's looking for 100 city employees to volunteer for some point during the day. So check with your directors, see if that's something that you want to do. It's a really fun day, and it's really rewarding to help our senior residents. So go see Director McNamara if you have questions about that. Thank you all for coming. Next month we'll be covering our shore to core to shore efforts, so talking about the lakefront. So stay tuned for communications about that. If you have other ideas for topics that you want to see us cover in the future, come talk to me and we will consider them. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.